That one will get you. So, what I'm talking about today is light and shadow. And I know that I chose that song in particular when I knew that Sloan was going to be here and that I was going to be speaking on that day. And it's not sort of your typical New Thought song where everything's just happy and happy-go-lucky and jumping up and down. But for me, it's a perfect New Thought song. It talks about living on the ground, but looking up higher. It talks about feeling cut off from our source. Of course, we're never cut off from our source, but if you've never felt cut off from your source, raise your hand. Yeah, not me. So, being cut off from the source, but in acceptance, willing to drink what's given to me. Willing to drink what's given to me. And last week, when Sarah spoke, I sang a song about embracing the wholeness that we are, even though at any given time we only see the pieces. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, light and shadow. Light and shadow. And we are light. We are light, but we are divine beings in human bodies. And I don't think that was a mistake. And I think sometimes and really not too much here, but out in the world and at Unity Village, believe it or not, I run into a lot of people who have what I would call a shallow interpretation of New Thought, which would be, that we're supposed to be happy all the time, that we're using the power of positive thinking to create a world where we never have to be sad, we never have to deal with anything bad, and what I have seen happen over the years that I've been in New Thought is that sometimes people are almost ashamed of being sad or of being sick. Oh, what? Did I hold some thought that made me sick? Why I got a diagnosis. I must have been holding bad thoughts. And it's a very shallow interpretation. What the truth is much more subtle and much deeper than that. And do I know what the truth is? Well, not exactly. But I'm going to give it a stab today. So what I want to talk about today is that we are both and. We are divine and human, light and shadow, grieving and joyful, in pain and happy, afraid and full of faith. That these are not opposites. These are two sides of a coin that exist simultaneously with each other all through our lives. And our duty here on earth is to not escape from our earthly self, but it's to recognize our divinity within our earthly self. You get a new thought, and it's really exciting, and wow, I can change my mind, and I'll change my life, and that is true, but bad stuff still happens. And what made me want to talk about this today is I ran into a minister friend of mine who was just about to go teach a class, and I said, "How are you?" She said, "Well, not too good." And I said, "What's going on?" She said, "Oh, nothing. Everything's fine. I'm fine." And I said, "No, what's going on?" And so she told me the story of this really difficult week she had, culminating in her pet, her bird that she'd had for over 10 years, dying in her hands the day before. And, and she said, "I'm about to go teach this class on harnessing the power of the universe and, positivity and all of that." And I was like, that is not a dichotomy. I mean, she really felt, she's been a New Thought for a long time, but she really felt like she shouldn't share this pain or that she shouldn't really be feeling it because she was teaching a class about positivity and about using our thoughts to change our world. And that was very sad to me. And she and I had a long conversation about it. And I was able to say, respect your pain, respect yourself, honor who you are. God didn't put us in human bodies so that we could get out of them as fast as possible. There must be a reason that I'm here in this body. And here's the secret. No one is happy all the time. No one. Sometimes stuff happens in life. Jesus wept. It's the shortest verse in the Bible, John 11:35. Jesus wept. His friend Lazarus died. And he didn't say, oh, it's only the death of the body. It doesn't really matter. His spirit lives on. He didn't say, well, if he might not have died if he hadn't been holding those bad thoughts. He wept. He wept for his friend because he missed his friend. And then being Jesus, he went and raised him from the dead. So I wish I could do that. But I have not evolved to that point yet. But I believe it is no mistake that verse made it into the Bible. Like I said, it's the shortest verse. It doesn't linger around that. It just said he wept. And I believe that is to show us that when God takes on a body, that body experiences human emotions, and that is right and good and as it should be. And pain has purpose in our lives. Fear has purpose in our lives. And our task, I believe, is to use the pain, to use the fear, to not wallow in it, but to spring forward from it. So I believe that denying our humanity is just as detrimental as denying our divinity. There are so many people walking around thinking they're only human and not knowing about their divine light. And we are so blessed and lucky to be in this place where we know, I am more than just this. I have the Spirit of God living within me at every moment. I am never cut off. And you have the Spirit of God living within you at every moment. And you are never cut off. And we are one. We know this, and still life is hard. There are people who don't know that, who think this is all there is. And I think we're so blessed and lucky to be here. But sometimes we get into a little bit too much into that everything's, I know I'm a divine being. And, when somebody in my life dies, I don't want to hear that they're going to live on forever. I cannot sit in their lap anymore. I cannot hold their hand. I cannot pet them in the case of a pet. So it is right and proper and good for me to grieve. We are spiritual beings. We are human beings. We are both. And to me, New Thought is about freedom. Freedom from having to be a certain way in order to be acceptable or accepted. So there is a shallowness in the doctrine that says either we have no power, we're wretched humans, and that's the way I was brought up in a fundamentalist church, is that you're supposed to be miserable here. That's your duty on earth, and the more miserable you are here, the better your reward in heaven is going to be. And I believe that, and I really practice misery. It was important to me. I got darn good at it. So I don't believe that anymore. And I believe that God wants us to be happy, but I don't think being happy is just about nothing bad ever happening. So here's the way I see it, that we have no power. And then there's this other, the secret, E squared, all that stuff is good for a tool. I'm not preaching against that. But what it sometimes is interpreted as is we have all power. And we do, in truth. We have the Spirit of God living and moving and breathing through us. That is all power. But we are not all power. Just as every drop in the ocean is as fully ocean water as the entire ocean, right? But a drop is not the ocean. And that's how I see us. We are as fully God. We are made up of God's substance, but we are not all of God. Thank you, God. I would hate to think that I was my highest authority. What did he say? I missed it. I didn't even hear what you said.
So
true. I am his highest authority now. So here's the way I see it. We do have great power. We have great power, the Spirit within, to affect our lives positively. But we can't always control outer circumstance. We can change ourselves. We can't change some of the things that happen to us. And it is a tragedy to blame ourselves or to look for the reason when something bad happens. Did I do something wrong? I think the universe is much more subtle and complicated than that. So we have this great power. We can't always control outer circumstances, but that is not the point. We can learn, once we truly know that God lives and moves within us and has its being in us, we can learn to live from the inside out. To take our feelings from what's going on within us instead of reacting to each circumstance that happens. As Glenn said in the song, more reacting than real plans. I like that. So this power does not keep anything bad from ever happening, but this power gives us the resources so that we can know beyond a doubt that no matter what happens, we have the resources to make it through. We can overcome. We can make use of circumstances no matter how bad they seem. Our thoughts have the power to frame our experience of life. We cannot change what happens in life, but we can change how we experience it. And that, folks, is miracle enough for me. When I can change my experience of what's going on, it's such a blessing. It's such a miracle. It's life-changing. And once you have it, you may sink down into the dirt again, but I don't think you ever go back completely. Once you know that God lives within you, you can no longer just cut yourself off from the source. So my prayer life for the past couple of years, and I've shared it with some very close friends, but not publicly until the last time I spoke here, has really been centered around the fact that I am feeling called to ministry. And the point at which, and I remember this was several months ago, and I was in prayer, and I just had this sudden flash. I'm going to cry, so there's no use apologizing. It's just what I do. In her workshop yesterday, Sloan said, crying makes you smarter. And Sherry and I went, we must be geniuses. The feeling that I had in this meditation, that this is what I'm meant to do, it was like all of the crap that's happened in my life, all of the loss, all of the pain, all of the, some really bad stuff. I kind of went, oh, I can use it. I can use that in ministry. I can use that. Not that's the reason why it happened, but it happened, and now I can make something of it. I can move forward from here. I believe that God is frugal and that nothing happens for no reason. Not that God causes bad things to happen so that you can learn a lesson. I don't believe that. But I think when bad things happen through the choices of all of the billions of humans making choices on this earth, when bad stuff happens, God can figure out a way to make use of it. He does not let any experience go to waste. He, she, it. I kind of prefer it. But that spirit, the allness of everything, doesn't waste anything. We can make use of anything that happens to us. And please don't misinterpret me. I am not saying that there is always a reason. Oh, now I know why that happened, and I understand, and the ending is now happy. I have not experienced that in my life. In some ways I have. It's like, oh, I know why I didn't get that job, because there was this job. Or I know why that boy didn't love me back, because there was this man that was going to love me. Those kinds of things, yes, I see. But, when someone dies, and several years ago, and this was a real pivotal point in my life, A very good, close friend of ours and his family went to Hawaii on vacation. And he and his 9-year-old daughter were in a plane crash. Now, there is no way that I have ever been able to say, I get it now, I understand why Jerry and Emma died. There's no way that I believe that the world is better without them. You know, maybe they're, in their next plane of existence doing some very important work. I'm sure they are, because they were both extremely loving people. But I am not happy about them being gone from me. I am not okay with that. I have not experienced a blessing that says, oh, this explains it all. And I think it's simplistic and insulting to imply that to people when they've experienced a loss. Oh, there's a reason for this. And, there is a reason. The reason is we're human and we die, every single one of us, at some point. We hope that we live a full and rich life before we die, but that doesn't always happen. So my human mind cannot comprehend the whys of my experience. You can drive yourself absolutely crazy by asking why. And I believe that why is not the point. Why is not the appropriate question. The appropriate question is, okay, what can I do now? What can I do now? Where do I go next? What I can do when I can't comprehend the why is I can let the experience change me. I can let it make me more compassionate and sensitive. I can let it make me value my own life more. I can let it make me say I love you more often to my friends, to express gratitude to the people in my life who bring me amazing blessings. I can tell people I love them now because I know that there may not be a later. This is not a very good trade-off for losing Jerry. But they are valuable additions to my life. The life lessons I got from the losses, from Jerry, from my best friend David a few years ago, are things that I can use to be of service to others. And to me, that's what life on planet Earth is about. If you want to get out of your own pain, go help somebody else. Being of service. So what we do is that we learn how not to pretend we don't have pain and sadness. Not to pretend we're not in a crisis of faith. Not to pretend we don't have questions and anger and frustration and feelings of impotence. Because when we pretend those things aren't true, we are not fully experiencing the reality of life on earth. And I don't think I'm in a body to not experience being in a body. I think I'm in a body because I'm supposed to experience being in a body. But just as we harm ourselves by denying our humanness, we can harm ourselves just as much by wallowing in it, by identifying with it. This is me. I'm the girl who lost all her friends. That's not where I want to go with it. I won't say I didn't have days like that and that I won't again. But we have to learn not to identify it, not to let it keep us from moving forward. So we love ourselves by feeling, and Sarah touched on this last week, it's the Buddhist way. We love ourselves by feeling what we feel, whatever it is. And we honor ourselves by not getting stuck there, by not becoming to love our grief itself, by not constantly reliving past pains. Don Miguel Ruiz said in his book, The Four Agreements, he was counseling someone, and they were saying, you don't understand, this horrible, horrible, horrible thing happened to me. And actually, it was someone who had experienced a rape. And she couldn't get out, she couldn't let go of that. It was affecting her years and years later. And Don Miguel said, who's raping you now? That sounds really harsh. That was hard for me to read. Ugh. But there's truth in that. You can stay in the past where the hurt is, or you can say, that sucked. I hate that happened to me. but I'm not going to let it ruin my life. I'm going to have a good life. You can even say, now I know how to counsel young women who have gone through what I've gone through. You can turn it into a positive, helping others. So that's what I'm talking about. Not reliving past pain, not anticipating future pain, because I was really taught to do that. I'm 4th generation warrior in my family. You know, somebody's 5 minutes late, call the hospitals, he's dead. I did not come by that by accident. My great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, I'm afraid I passed a little bit of it down to my daughter. So not anticipating future pain and living there. Do you ever do that? Sometimes I stand in the shower and I imagine the worst thing that could happen. So I feel like I'm preparing myself for it, so that when it does happen, maybe it won't hurt as bad. And as my friend David says in a song, I have discovered that worrying works. And here is how I know. 99% of the things I worried about never happened. So not staying in the past, not reaching toward the future, but being present with what is today. Sarah talked about that last week, being present with what is today. And in order to be present for what is today, you have to get quiet for a minute. You may have to turn off the TV. You may have to put down the iPad. You may have to close the door on the noisy pets and children and spouses. You may not all have noisy spouses, but I have one. You have to spend a little time with yourself to know exactly what it is that you're feeling. Because here's what I know. Here's what I have observed and experienced as a person who's been on the spiritual path for a really long time, pretty much my whole life, is that you don't get to use God to pole vault over the garbage in your life. You don't get to go, now I've got God, whoop, I'm just going to run and jump, and all that garbage, I skipped it. Woo, here I am on the winner's side. You don't get to do that. If you do, you're robbing yourself. Because I believe that if you refuse to open yourself enough to experience deep pain, then you automatically cut yourself off from receiving deep joy. So what I'm not fighting for our right to be miserable. Please understand me. I want joy and happiness in my life. That is a goal for me. That is a very important goal. But what I'm fighting for is the right to be real. To be real and deep and present with what's going on. If I stay in the shallow water, I may not experience the deep pain, but I'm not going to experience deep anything else either. And when I'm willing to be present with the pain, every single time, you don't get many guarantees in this life. I'll write this and sign it for you if you want me to. This is a written guarantee. Every single time that I have been willing to be present with my pain, I have felt and seen and heard the hand of God embracing me and walking me through it. The moment I say, okay, I'm ready to stop distracting myself, I'm ready to stop running away, I'm ready to get out of denial, then I immediately feel, as I sort of gird my loins for this is going to hurt, I immediately feel the presence of God with me. And I am walked through. I never have to feel it alone. I never have to walk through it alone. And to me, that is the miracle of New Thought, is that we know this, that we know that we're cherished. We know it with our minds. It's really hard to know it in our hearts. So we have to remind ourselves of it over and over and over and over again. So if I am being present with reality, then I get to walk through the pain with God, holding my hand, carrying me sometimes. I never have to do it alone. And sometimes God shows up with a face on it. Sometimes God shows up as you, Glenn. And sometimes God shows up as Bob. And sometimes God shows up as Sloan. Sometimes God shows up as Linda. And I have to be open to that too. Oh, excuse me, I'm meditating. I can't talk to you right now. You know, I have to be open to God with skin on. God with skin on in my life. What would I do without it? I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to think about it. So I also have to be open to the ways God is present for me. So love and letting go. Joy and pain. Letting go of our worry. Letting go of our fear of tomorrow. Letting go of our agony over the past. And today, not only feeling our pain, but cherishing our joy. All you young parents out there, and I know there are some of you who are either parents or fixing to be, I think most of us with children would say, if we had it to do over again, we would have more fully experienced those moments of joy. When we were trying to get the kitchen sink cleaned, or get the kid to soccer practice, or get the dog to the groomer, or I'm busy having a fight with my husband, and there's this precious child in the next room. When I'm more present for my pain, I'm also more present for my joy. I'm more present, period. And when I'm more present, I can see the richness, the beautiful richness of the life that I've been given, the beautiful richness of the life that God has given to every single one of us. Cherish joy, express and experience gratitude, relish humor. Yeah, God shows up as humor. I'm here to tell you. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. I'm always present for a belly laugh if I can get one. Always. Always. And that's the other side of it, is that, like Rebecca and I, we laugh even louder than we cry. So we can use the incredible lushness of our experience to create a life of purpose. We can revel in connection. We can love and embrace our whole selves. There's no room for shame in that. There's no room for, I wish I hadn't. There's just, okay, I did that. Where do I go from here? What do I do next? How do I not repeat that? Or how can I do it differently next time? Or who can I help because I've had that experience? And then we compose our own song that is the amalgamation of all that we are, human and divine, light and shadow. And when I'm living in the shadows, which sometimes I do notice that the light seems to be brightest when I first emerge from the shadow. So it has its purpose. It makes us appreciate the light. It makes us long for the light. It makes us run to the light. Thank you so much for being here this morning, and I have another lovely song that Sloan is going to sing for us.